Okay. We saw the first little piece in the Gemara, and the Gemara explained to us what does it mean to lock up koroi, and we learned about ruach mitsuya, a normal wind, a wind that I can expect. If it won't stay closed in that wind, so then the person who locked it is negligent. Now that is rather minimal, right? Right? That's not exactly serious guarding. I don't have to shut it with locks and chains. I just to make sure that it won't open in a normal wind. That would be a very simple rope. And what would be very simple is for any person to walk in and open it. Right? That would be extremely simple for a person to open the gate. Right? Just pick up the rope and open the gate.
Just okay. The Gemara.
What? Yeah, we're we're 3 lines down in the Gemara. We're going to start with Amar Rav Mani Bar Patish. So you have to learn the Mishnah. But Lamaisa, we're talking about the first case in the Mishnah at this point. Okay. Someone locked up a sheep in a pen, and he locked it up properly. It got out and did damage. He's putter. If he didn't lock it up properly, he's chayev. And what does it mean not to lock it up properly? That a normal wind could open the gate. An abnormal wind, he's butter that. That's oinus. That's an accident. One of the early chief rabbis here in Eretz Yisrael was Rabbi Herzog. He was an enormous Talmud Chacham. He was the chief rabbi of Ireland, and then he came to Eretz Yisrael and became the chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael. He was a huge Talmud Chacham. His son was one of the early Labor Party politicians, etc., and then he became a UN ambassador for a while, and he was president of the country for a while. He was a very, very well-known, active Labor Party politician in the first 30 years when the Labor Party ran the place, until Begin won in 1977. So his name was Chaim Herzog. Chaim Herzog used to go to a daf. He wasn't from. Was he Shomer Shabbos? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he was Shomer Shabbos, but he wasn't like, he wasn't his father. But he used to. He was very bright, and he used. I found this out because I knew someone else who went to the shiur. He used to go to a daf yomi shiur every day in Heichel Shloima, the seat of the chief rabbinate. There's a daf yomi shiur that's been going there for probably 70 years. I don't know, forever. And he used to go. He used to go to daf yomi shiur. Not from. He put on yarmulke and he goes and learn daf yomi every day. So he was an interesting Jew. I mean, his father was a huge Talmud. Once he was asked, you can now understand the joke. And it's true. His answer is a true answer. Not that this means he made the right decision, but his answer is a true answer. There's no question. He was asked, how could it possibly be that you're so different than your father? And the interviewer asked, the apple falls not far from the tree. And you fell a long way away from the tree. And he answered, he knew how to learn. He said, I was born in a ruach she'eina mitsuya. I was born when the wind was blowing in an unusual way. Meaning to say the apple fell not far from the tree. He used our Gemara. A ruach she'eina mitsuya. And he's right. But there's no question that when he was born, it was an incredibly tumultuous time. And a lot of people left Yiddishkeit, a lot of people. How many people born when he was born passed away in the same place they were born? How many Jews? Unless they were killed there. Yeah. Right? Almost none, right? Almost none. In that generation, how many people lived and died in the same place? Almost no one. They moved and did, and sent here and sent there. Our Rebbe, how many places was our Rebbe in? Friedrich Rebbe, here, there. Rebbe Shab already was moving around. Very tumultuous times. We think our times are tumultuous. There's certain aspects of them of the times now that are very tumultuous. There's no question. But that was his answer. Our Gemara. I grew up in a ruach she'eina mitsuya. He's right about that. He grew up in a ruach she'eina mitsuya. He didn't have to make the decisions he made, but he grew up in a ruach she'eina mitsuya. There's no doubt about that. All right, our Gemara. Okay. Amar Rav Mani Bar Patish. What's a patish? You know what a patish is?
Hammer.
A hammer. It's an interesting name. No, Mani bar Patish. Who named their kid Hammer? Right? And his father. Hammer of Mani bar Patish. An Amora. Man tana muad the sagele b'shmira pchusa. Stop. Okay. First things first. Translate. Let's translate those words. What do they mean?
Who is the one who say that the minimal guarding is sufficient regarding to Amuad?
Beautiful. Perfect. Perfect translation. All right? Who's the Tana? Now, I'll add one word. Who's the Tana? In other words, who's the author of what? Who do we want to know the author? The author of what?
This teaching.
Of this teaching. Where do you see this teaching?
Right.
No. Not in the Baraisa. I mean, yes, maybe also in the Baraisa, but the Mishnah, our Mishnah, right? Now, this is very interesting, because what did we just say about our Mishnah? What does our Mishnah seem to require or allow for, based on this question, right? I mean, it requires it, but also, requirement seems to be, indicate more as opposed to less. How does Rami Bar Patish understand our Mishnah? What's our Mishnah telling us, according to Mani Bar Patish? What level of guardianship is necessary? Less. And how does he see? Why? Why does he learn that from our Mishnah? What is it in our Mishnah that seems to say that? We did just talk about it. I mean, that's what he says, right? Who's the author of our Mishnah who requires minimal guarding? Well, where did our Mishnah say anything about minimal guarding? Well, evidently it did, according to him, right? By virtue of saying what? Did it seem to indicate that minimal guarding is enough?
Right.
If it's locked up.
Right.
Correct, right? That all you have to do is lock it up properly, and in all fairness, so in terms of what Tzvi said, it's true, including the Baraisa in the question, right? The question is really from the Mishnah, right? But also the Baraisa. What does the Baraisa say Ra'ui is? What does it mean to lock it up properly? Minimally, meaning it won't open in an abnormal wind. In a normal wind, I'm sorry. Won't open in a normal wind. Again, can a person walk and take the rope off and walk in? No problem. No problem. Is this how you lock your front door? Right? You push your door closed so it won't blow open in a normal wind. That's how you lock your front door? I don't think so. Right? I think most people, it depends where you live, right? But, locks and bolts and, machine guns set up so if anybody opens it, it automatically fires 15 bullets at the door. Chicago. Depends where you live. Okay. I just heard a story about Eliyahu Navi knocking on someone's door, and the person told the story. He was just a funny guy. So when he was telling the story, he said, I don't know, he answered the door and he let Eliyahu Navi come in. If someone knocked on my door and told me he's Eliyahu Navi, I think I'd close the door and bolt it, right? Like, what do you mean you're Eliyahu Navi? What does that mean? So, but I guess he knew it really was Eliyahu Navi. It's like true, someone knocks on your front door and says, hi, I'm Eliyahu Navi, can I come talk to you? What? But I guess he knew. Okay. So who's the author that requires minimal guarding? For what? One more thing we have to be careful to learn. What for what category of damage? Meaning we don't not the category in terms of the four categories we talked about earlier, but what status does this damager have? He says it. No, that's the halacha. But in the mantana muad, he's a muad. So who's the muad? In our case, who's the muad? In our Mishnah, who's the muad? Rabbi Yehuda isn't a muad. Rabbi Yehuda is a tana. A cow is a muad. A sheep is a muad. A dog is a muad. A snake is a muad. Not Rabbi Yehuda. Although Rabbi Yehuda is a muad because Adam muad li'elam. We say a person's always muad. Right? Even when you're sleeping, you're obligated for the damage you do. If you break a lamp next to where you're sleeping, you have to pay for the lamp. If you sleep like that, you should know to move the lamp before you went to sleep. Okay, so what? Who's the muad? Alo. Who's the muad?
So animal that usually is not aggressive. But
Okay, yeah, they did it again to us. They even took us, they took our Baruch Hashem out from the corner here. They're the draconian, anti-religious people here, taking Torah, they're trying to wipe Torah off completely. I don't know who did this. Okay, they probably used Ajax and spritzed it and cleaned it really, really well. Okay, a muad. In what, now when we talked about muad, when we talked about muad, we talked about it in two contexts. One context was Karen, right? Karen, right? Meaning aggressive damage. That's Karen, horn, right? That aspect of damage, right? Karen. An animal is not expected to be a cow, a sheep. I mean, sheep generally aren't shaykh to Karen, right? Sheep don't do aggressive things like that. Cows do. Bulls do. More bulls than cows. Okay. We'll see that later in our Gemara. I'll give you the words for that later today. But an animal, when that animal acts in an aggressive fashion towards another animal, towards a person or whatever, generally that's unexpected, and therefore the animal is considered a tam. Right? Simple, but tam. What does that tam mean? You only pay half damage. Okay? Unexpected damage. Right? Meaning I don't have to watch my cow. When I put my cow in a field with a bunch of other cows, I don't have to expect my cow to beat up another cow. Therefore, I don't have to watch my cow to make sure it doesn't beat up another cow, because that's not normal behavior. What if it does? So I'm obligated, but I'm only obligated half damage. And even that's limited, but if we ever have to go there, we'll go there. Right now we don't have to go. Right? I'm obligated half damage. Until it gores 3 times. Once it gores 3 times, it's now called muad, meaning from the word aid, testimony. Right? It's been testified against as a violent, aggressive animal, therefore I'm obligated to watch it. Don't put this bull in a ring, in a field with a bunch of other bulls, because he's going to beat them up, because that's what he does. Why? I don't know, but that's what he does. So don't put him there. And if I do put him there and he beats someone up, then I'm liable. You can't say, oh, that was unexpected. No, it's not unexpected. This is what he does every time you put him there. Okay, that's called a muad. Now, that category of tam and muad, I'm saying this generally, there are a couple of exceptions, but generally, that notion of tam and muad only exists in that realm of damages called keren, horn, aggressive behavior. In all other acts of damage that an animal will do, the animal's always a muad. They are expected to do it. And we talked about that. What are some of the things an animal is expected to do in terms of damage it might cause? Trample things in its way, right? That's expected. If you bring your animal into a place where there's all sorts of fragile stuff and it walks all over it and breaks it all, don't be surprised. So obviously you're going to be fully obligated to pay for that. What else will an animal do? Eat. Shane and Regal, right? Shane and Regal. Those two aspects of damages that we talked about. Shane is eating. Regal, we're going to see them in our Gemara, right? Regal is trampling.
What was the thought?
Bor and Aish were Karen, interestingly enough, is not included in the Arba Abbas Nezikin at the beginning of the chapter, at the beginning of the book, for whatever reason. The 4 mentioned are Shane, Regal, Bor, a pit in the public domain, meaning some sort of stumbling block, leaving your bike there. Right? Leave your bike in the middle of the road and you cause an accident. Well, what are you doing leaving your bike in the middle of the road? Right? And Aish, fire. Okay? Those 4, you are always a muad.
So Karen's the only one.
Karen's the only one where there's where you start off a tam, everybody. Now, there are animals that are muad for aggressive behavior. If you own a leopard, so he's a muad. If you own a snake, he's a muad. Okay. Oh, gee, I'm so surprised that my snake bit you. I didn't know he did that. Well, that's pretty dumb. That's what they do. My leopard ate you. Oh, I am sorry. I didn't know that would happen. Well, that's what they do. Lions, right? A few others. Mishnah, Bava Kama. Okay? So there are certain animals that and this is even tame ones. Meaning, a wild one, no one's obligated, right? A wild leopard eats someone up. Oh, he's a muad. Who's paying? Yes, no one owns it. We must be talking about a domesticated leopard that you have, that you found in the jungle in Africa as a little pup, and you brought it home, and it's very docile in your house. If it happens to eat the neighbor's dog, so then that's considered normal, and he's a muad. I mean, you can't say, oh, I didn't expect him to eat my neighbor's dog. He's a leopard. Of course you expected him to eat your neighbor's dog. What's wrong with you? Okay? Snakes, similarly. People have snakes as pets. I think strange people, but I don't want to, maybe someone here does, so I don't want to get in trouble. I had a student who once I ran into him in the pet store in one of the big malls here in Yerushalayim. He was a student I hadn't seen for 10 years. He married here and lives in Eretz Israel, and has some kids, and he has a job, has something, whatever it was, and he was in the pet store. I said, what are you doing here? Oh, I take care of the snakes here. I'm really into snakes. I have snakes at home, and I take care of the snakes for the pet store. He was a completely normal guy. This is the last thing you'd expect him to be into. Snakes. He liked snakes. So he took care of the snakes in the pet store. Sweet, sweet guy. From Providence, Rhode Island. Originally. Student 40 years ago. Amar Ramani Bar Patish. Man Tana Muad Desagle Bishmei Pekusa. Who's the Tana that holds that minimal guarding is enough for a muad? Okay, now back to my original question. Why do we say we're talking about a muad here? What seems to be the type of damage we're talking about? Or not talking about?
Karen.
We're not talking about Karen. Why not?
Who else would we talk? Repeat. Tom.
Okay, but that's that's not really a very fair answer, right? Why are we talking about muad? Well, because we're not talking about Tom. I don't know why. So why aren't we talking about Tom? I mean, why does Ramani Bar Patish assume we're talking about a muad? You said because we're not talking about a Tom. Well, why aren't we talking about a Tom? I will query.
It doesn't have to do with attacking the horn.
Oh, how do you know that? Doesn't say anywhere in our Mishnah that the damage that this animal did was not caring. Right? Doesn't say that. True? Our Mishnah just says you didn't lock it up properly and it went out and did damage, you're chayav. Okay, so evidently what kind of damage did it do? Now, later on in the Mishnah, we're clearly talking about trampling and eating. That's clear. Okay. But why do I necessarily assume that that's every case in the Mishnah? Look carefully at the case in the Mishnah. What are we locking up in there? Oh. A sheep. Not an ox. Now, we're going to see it, and again, in the words that I show you, you can't see it because you don't have that page, but it happens to be that up until now, almost all of the damage that we've been talking about in terms of animals doing, 2 chapters in a row that start with the word shor shenagach, an ox that gores. Talk about oxen. All of a sudden we talk about a tzayin, and that'll come up in Gemara in a minute. Right? I mean, not what we see today, but I'll give you words for it for tomorrow. So the fact that we're talking about a tzayin seems to indicate we're talking about shein and regel. We're not talking about keren, because violent behavior is just not what you expect from sheep. Right? That's not what they do. Right? Okay. Now rams might get into it a little bit if there's a female ewe around. Right? Okay. Right? With those big horns, and they'll bash into each other, big horn sheep bashing into each other. Okay, but your average sheep that the shepherd has, and he's taking care of, you're not worried about aggressive behavior. That's not what they're doing. What are they doing? Shein and regel. Oh. So that's why Ramani Bar Patish assumes we're talking about shein and regel, and therefore we're talking about a muad, because there is no reality of tam in the case of shein and regel. The only thing that's close to tam in shein and regel is something called, and it comes up, but it's really not so much tam as just something, it is unexpected, but it's not tam to the extent that, some animals do and some animals don't, is what's called sroders, pebbles. What if an animal is walking along and it kicks a pebble and the pebble breaks something? It kicks a stone and the stone breaks something. The animal's not walking near it. It didn't trample on it at all. but he kicked a stone and the stone hit your pottery at the side of the road and broke your pot. In that case, you pay half damages. That's really unexpected. Okay? But it's not that some animals are known to kick and other animals aren't known to kick, like in aggressive behavior. No, it's just bad luck. If that happens to be your animal, it's bad luck. So we don't hit you with the full cost of the pot that he broke. All right, that's called shiur. It comes up. But that's an exception to the rule. In general, shein and regel, full damage. Again, shein means teeth, eating. Regel means foot, trampling. Okay? It's going to come up in the psukim. Do we? Oh, Baruch Hashem. We have our Bibles in the corner. Okay. So who wrote this Mishnah? Question. Okay. So what do we expect next? An answer. Rabbi Yehudi. It's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the author of our Mishnah. Now, this is probably, I'm not sure. You could definitely learn this as a question that Rav Mani Bar Patish is asking and answering. Right? It's a rhetorical question. Who taught our Mishnah? It must be Rabbi Yehuda, because. Okay, but we learned it simply. Question, then answer. Rabbi Yehudi, the Tnan, we learn in a Mishnah. Okay, for those of you who've been in this class before, when we quote a Mishnah, what do? Ooh.
Take it off the page.
Thank you, Kamma, you saved my life. Right? Every time you quote on a full source, it doesn't be a full source, but you're clearly quoting some source. What do you do first? Take that source off the page, put it over here, and learn pshat. If usually it's a Mishnah or a Baraisa, learn pshat in the Mishnah of the Baraisa, irrespective of our Gemara. Why? This Mishnah was not written in order to explain our Gemara. This Mishnah was written 200, 300 before our Gemara. Right? This Mishnah has a life of its own in terms of this is the information the Mishnah is interested in teaching. Rami Bar Patish thinks that the information in this Mishnah is relevant to our sugya and to a question that he has about our Mishnah. Okay, that's reasonable. He's allowed to do that. But this Mishnah was not written, the Mishnah we're about to read was not written in order to explain our Mishnah. This Mishnah was written because it's its own piece of information. Okay? So what's an example of this in real life? To quote Shakespeare in order to explain something that Bill Clinton said. Shakespeare didn't say that to explain Bill Clinton, right? Shakespeare, to his great pleasure, never heard of Bill Clinton. Didn't have to deal with such a thing, right? Okay, so you could explain what Clinton said based on Shakespeare, because Clinton could be quoting Shakespeare, right? But you can't explain Shakespeare based on Clinton. So that's what we're trying to do here. Oh, so what do you have to do? Take Shakespeare and learn it out of the context of whatever you're learning. Okay, what does he say? This is what he says. Oh, how is that relevant to us? Oh, I'll show you how that's also relevant to what we're talking about. But he didn't say it to be relevant to what we're talking about. He said what he said because he said what he said. Okay, so this Mishnah, anytime you see a Mishnah quoted, take it off the page, say pshat in the Mishnah. And that's something you should all feel very comfortable doing, saying pshat in the Mishnah. Right? Because you all went through Mishnah class, or if you didn't go through Mishnah class, it's because they felt you didn't need to go through Mishnah class. Okay. So learning a Mishnah is something we should feel very comfortable doing. And why do we learn Mishnah first? Well, because if you feel comfortable learning a Mishnah, about a third of every page of Gemara is already taken care of, because it's mostly, there's so many Mishnayos and Brises quoted that you feel comfortable with a third of the stuff you're reading. Right? The connections and the questions, okay, there's a lot of things going on in the page, but the information in this Mishnah, you should be able to figure it out. Okay, so let's take this this Mishnah that we're about to learn, take it off the page and say pshat in it. And then we'll put it back in our Gemara and see how it's relevant to our Gemara. Titnan, kashrei balav, v'meseida, v'nal lefanav keroi. Okay. V'yotze v'chizik, and it went out to do damage. Echad tam v'echad muad chayev. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Okay, so case halacha, right? Who would like to read the words of the case? You do not have to translate them. Read the words of the case and stop before the halacha. If you read the halacha, there will be an electric shock in your chair, right? If you stop early, nothing happens, but we all get depressed, which is worse.
קשור בעליו מוסר ונהל לפניו כללי ויצא בזיו ונמצא עליו.
Oh, so echad tam and echad muad could either be part of case or part of halacha. I think you're right? You could also learn that as part of the case, both case A and case B, or just learn that as part of the halacha, 100%. Okay, so what is the case? What case or cases? What happened?
That they tied him up and
They?
He's the owner.
It's probably kash row, right? He tied it, right? Okay, because the next verb is also singular, right? He tied it.
and locked it up.
Although I take that back because it says by love, which is also can be plural, even though you're talking about one guy. Generally, I'm sorry for the tangent, but it's not a tangent. The word ba'alim, which is plural, theoretically you should translate it as owners. It's the word that Chazal use in Mishnayos to mean owner. Okay, Baal usually, not always, but Baal usually means husband. So Baalim means owner. Now sometimes Baal will also be owner. Balabayis is the owner of the house, okay? But Baalim usually is one guy, the owner of the cow, even though it's written in plural. Okay, so sometimes if it's written in plural, it will be conjugated in plural. So here you could really read Kashru Ba'alav, but it really means he tied it up. Okay, so the owner tied it up b'meiseda. What's a meiseda? He's tied it up with a rope, and I assume part of the rope is around the neck of the animal or the goof of the animal, and the other part of the rope is around some post or something, right? Like Wyatt Earp tying up his horse in front of the saloon. Okay, Vanal lefan of kiroi. What's that?
We locked him up as a software.
Okay, so is that a separate case or an addition to the first case?
It's additional information to the first case.
Oh yeah, it's still part of the first case, but I mean, did he do both?
Yeah.
Or he only did one?
We don't know. I think
So
both.
He did both?
I think so.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, based on, I'm not sure, right? But I mean, based on what we do know something, right? We're allowed to know something when we look at a Mishnah. What do we know is enough to be considered guarding of an animal? Locking it up. So what would be unnecessary if I locked it up? To tie it up. So how do you learn that vav? Probably. Or. He tied it up or he locked it up. Right? Properly. Okay. V'yotzav izik, and yet still it got away. And that's how we read the end of the case, right? Okay, now echad tam v'echad muad could be part of the halacha. In both these cases, the halacha is like this, or you can be part of the case, right? Either one. Echad tam v'echad muad, both in the case of a tam and in the case of a muad. Okay, so what kind of damage are we talking about? If we're talking about tam and muad?
We're just talking about all damage.
No Shannon there.
Well, okay, but what category of damage am I talking about?
No Karen.
Shannon.
Not Karen?
Karen.
Karen, because what am I including in the possible tam? There's a tam. Again, in the case of Shane and Regel, there's no such thing as a tam. An animal is a muad relative to eating things in front of it and relative to trampling things in front of it. It's not unexpected. It's not that, this is a trampling animal. He does it all the time. No. Any animal, day one, I assume that if something is in front of it, that he's going to step on it. He's not going to be careful. That's just the way animals are. Right? There are animals that aren't. Right? The animal that most people encounter that are very, very careful are called cats. And if you put a bunch of things in front of a cat, it will very nimbly avoid them all. But put the same things in front of a dog, what will happen? Everything will be on the ground within, right? There's even a cute video of someone doing that to their cat and their dog, setting up pins in the front hole. And the cat walks through very nimbly and very slowly. The dog just brushes, sends everything flying. Okay. That's a dog, that's the way they are, right? So if a cat were to step on something, that would be interesting. I wonder if a cat is a muad mitzad regel. Today, don't know. Interesting question, right? But a dog for sure. And in those days, and in most still, what animals do most people have? Yes, people have pets, but people who own animals because they make their living from animals, what do they have? They have cows, they have sheep, they have oxen, etc., etc. So what do those things want to do? Step all over things and break them. Okay, so we're not talking about that. We seem to be talking about Karen. We seem to be talking about violent behavior, right? Aggressive behavior. And regardless of whether the animal is a tam or a muad, what's the halacha? Chayev. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So when Rabbi Meir says a tam is chayev, what does that mean? The tam is chayev. The owner of the tam has to pay. What does he pay? Half. Right? That's how tam works. Now, the way tam works is you pay half up to the value of the animal that did the damage. Okay. There's that also another limitation in tam. Meaning, if a $100 ox gored a $2,000 ox and completely, pushed it off a cliff, so there's nothing left. So the damage was $2,000. So the guy pays $100, gives him the ox worth $100. Doesn't pay $1,000, pays $100. Why? Pays half up to the value of the ox that did the damage. Okay. So the owner of a tam will never lose more than his ox. He'll never go in debt because of the damage his ox. Whereas a muad who pushed the $100 muad that pushed the $2,000 ox off the cliff, $2,000. Borrow the money. I don't care. You owe him $2,000. Right? So we're clearly talking about Karen. Right? Rabbi Yehuda Eimer. Rabbi Yehuda says tam chayiv, muad potter. Now here clearly tam here is a case and muad is a case. So in the case of a tam, what's the halacha? Half damages. Chayiv, to pay half damages. Muad, in the case of a muad, what's the halacha? Manyen, potter. The muad is less strict than the tam, right? Shaneh mar, as it says, and we have to look up the psukim. V'lo yishmerenu bailo. Okay, and then what do those words mean? We'll look it up in the context, but what do they mean simply?
Didn't protect it wasn't protected outside.
He didn't guard it, its owner. The owner didn't guard it. And what does it say next in the Gemara? Shamur, who said what?
The God.
The verse says what? That he didn't guard it. Let me get it again. Okay. Let's find the verse. Shmeis Chaf Aleph. I told you what pasuk because I didn't want you to look through so many psukim. Shmeis Chaf Aleph. Shmeis 21. Which verse? Come on, I told you. You didn't write it down? I saved you looking through. 36, I think, isn't it? 36. 21, 36. Okay? The second last verse in the chapter, so I saved you going through the whole chapter. Shmeis. Shmeis is at the beginning of the book, right? What's the first book in the book? Bereshis. The second book in the book is Shmeis. No page numbers. You have to learn how to look up a pasuk. What are you looking at? What does it say at the top of the page, Sean?
No, it's not right.
What does it say at the top?
Midbar.
Bamidbar, not midbar. Keep going backwards. Okay? Everybody has a book? There aren't enough? Everybody has now? Need one more? Shmeis Chaf Aleph, pasuk Lamed Vav, right? First pasuk. This is explaining Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so now, before we look in the pasuk, we have to remind ourselves, what do we want to see in this pasuk? What is Rabbi Yehuda learning from this pasuk? He told us something. What did he tell us? And then he says, Shanemar, as the pasuk says. So clearly he's learning information.
Minimal guarding is sufficient.
The tam was
That minimal guarding is sufficient for
for muad.
a muad. Right? That's his position. Now, that's very useful for us because we're looking for that, but we're not going to say that now. because we're learning Pshat in this Mishnah. We're not worried about our Gemara, right? That somehow a muad is more lenient than a tam, and he's going to show you why. Shenemar, as the pasuk says. So we look in the pasuk. Now, usually you're going to have to look a few psukim before to figure out what the context is. So sure enough, let's look a few verses before, like 1. V'ki yigef shor, yigef, he uses his body to body slam ish es shor reyehu. So the shore of an ish, the shore of some person, wipes out the shore of his fellow, v'meis, and he dies. I guess he killed the other shore. Shore 1 killed shore 2. Yeah, we found it? Shmeis Chaf Aleph, top of the page. Right? Shmeis, Exodus 21.
There we go. 2136.
2136. I have to learn how to look up psukim. That's why no page numbers. We'll figure it out. You have to learn how to look up psukim. Right? Okay? V'chi yigev shor ish es shoreu. Reuven shor body slammed Shimon's shor. V'meis, and he died. Not Reuven or Shimon, one of the oxen. I assume the one that was hit, not the one that did the hitting. Umachru es hashor hachai, sell the live shore. V'chatzu es kaspe, and cut in half its money. V'gam es hameis, and also a dead one, yechetzo, split in two. Okay, so that whole strange part of the pasuk seems to be telling me how I pay. So how do I pay in this case where Reuven's ox killed Shimon's ox?
Full payment, you give him full payment, split the dead.
Okay, so if I'm splitting the live one and splitting the dead one and giving them each half, how much is he paying?
Well,
Half. Okay, so what's the case? What kind of ox is this? It's a tam, right? True? So put numbers in. A $200 ox killed a $200 ox, right? So split the living one in half. How much of the living one do they each get? 100. Right? And split the dead one in half. The dead one's dead. Well, no. What does it still have?
Carcass.
There's a carcass that's worth something, right? It might be, first of all, someone might take the meat who doesn't need shechita, right? Someone might take the leather. The leather's worth something, right? It's worth quite a lot if you've ever bought a leather coat, right? Okay, so the animal is worth something. So let's say it's worth $50, right? Okay, so how much damage did he do in the end? He took a $200 ox and turned it into a $50 ox. $150. Baruch Hashem. Thank you for answering that question. Right? Okay? Seder. So what do? We take half of the live one and give to each one, so they each get 100. So how much are they each out at this point? 100. They've each lost 100 at this point. They started with 2 and now they have 1. Then you take the dead one and you split it. So you give them each 25 because it's worth 50, right? We said it's worth 50. So you give them each 25. Bottom line, what was the damage? $150. How much did the guy who did the damage lose? 75. That's half, right? And how much did the guy who had the damage happen to him, how much did he lose? 75. Half, right? They each lose half. Oh, so this was a tam. Yeah? Now, it would have been easier for the Torah to say he pays half, but this is the way the Torah says things. No, because we learn a tremendous amount of information about this when we reach that sugya about how we actually make this calculation. Right? Okay? Because what if they're not worth the same? And what if the value of the dead cow changed between the time that it was killed and the time that we actually ended up in court and made this evaluation, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because what are you talking about? A dead cow. It's going to be worth a lot more day 1 than it is day 5, right? It's going to go down in value pretty quickly, right? So all sorts of interesting things that have to be taken into account in terms of figuring out who owes what. It's not just half. If there's nothing left of the cow, then it's very easy. But if there's something left of the cow, okay. Now, and I'm just throwing this out as an example so you'll understand what issues come up. My cow gored Svi's cow and pushed it into a pit. And it's dead down there. 4 feet deep. Okay, what? other very interesting issue arises now.
Getting it out of the pit.
Who's responsible for getting it out of the pit, you or me? That makes a big difference in how much it's going to be worth once we get it out of the pit, right? We leave it in the pit for a week, not much left. Get it out right away, okay, but that's like getting a dead cow out of a pit. This is a major operation. Today you get a crane, right? Now you don't want the cow in the pit because there's water in the pit, and you don't want the cow destroying the water in the pit, right? People are drinking that water, using that water. Yes, I agree. That's why you should be very happy every time you turn on the tap. Oh, that's also that issue, right? I pushed your cow into your pit. Now your cow just messed up your drinking water, but it was because of my cow. Oh, what about that? That's really interesting. There's so many variables, and that's why it says it the way it says it, because those words will help us understand all of those variables. Because nothing's ever as simple as it looks. Right? Okay. So now that's talking about a tam. That's not our pasuk, right? We're not even at our pasuk yet. Now let's read our pasuk. This is what you have to do when you're learning, right? You have to open up a chumash and learn the psukim and say pshat in the psukim, and you're not in a hurry. You have nothing else to do, right? This is what you're doing. You're learning Torah, so learning a pasuk is fine. You're allowed to do it. It's not. Oh, I'm wasting my time. You're not wasting your time. You're learning Torah. Oy noida. It's known kishor nagachu. That what? Nagach means to gore. It's known that what? The ox is a goring ox, mitmol shel shom, from yesterday and the day before. Now, it doesn't have to mamish be yesterday and the day before, but therefore, interesting enough, how many times has he gored?
Twice.
Yeah, this is third. I mean, because this is today, theoretically, right? We're talking today. Okay, so he's gored third time. So now there's a question arises. We're not getting to that question right now. Do you pay on the third time or do you pay on the fourth time? Okay, this seems to indicate that you're paying on the third time. Okay, but there is a problem with that because he has to be testified against in Beis Din already. Whatever. Okay, so don't worry about that issue. But from this we learn that you become a muad after goring 3 times, either the third time or after 3 times. Okay, and we are going to ignore that issue. But it's pretty clear from this. There's something called a muad after 3 times because all of a sudden the payment is different. He's a gorer that gored yesterday and the day before. V'lo yishmerenu ba'ilov. And what? What does it say? His owners didn't guard him. Shalem yishalem shor tachas hashor. You pay an ox in place of the ox. In other words, what? Full value. V'hameis yeloi. And the dead ox will be his. Who do we assume his is? Who's going to get the dead ox? The one who did the damage, right? Because he didn't cause $200 worth of damage. He caused $180 worth of damage because the dead one's worth $20. Okay. You pay $200 and deal with the dead one. Right? Okay. Now that might very much include getting him out of the pit, right? You want him? Get him out of the pit. Okay. Right? There's a lot going on that we wouldn't necessarily think about, but when you start thinking about it, you realize, whoa, it's like right? Okay. And like we said earlier, the evaluation of what the dead is worth, from when do we make that evaluation? Is it when we're standing in Beis Din or when the thing happened? Okay, and you and I don't know that looking at this. We just can appreciate the fact that there's such an issue. Okay, so now clearly this is a muad. What words seem rather superfluous in this verse? No, that's absolutely necessary. It's not owner didn't guard him. Well, of course his owner didn't guard him. Otherwise, why would he go out and gore? And in the first case, did we say the owner didn't guard the tam? No. Does the owner have to guard the tam to some degree? Yes, we know he has to guard him to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. Can't say, go gore that ox because you're a tam, right? To guard him to some degree. Okay, so why does it say V'lei yishmerenu ba'ilov? Oh, so what does Rabbi Yehuda learn from those 3 words? Let's see. Those words are only in the case of muad. They were not in the case of tam, right? True? Is what I'm saying reasonable? Yeah, you're all with me? I know looking up psukim is something new. Okay, we just have to look up psukim and figure out what those words and the master of the ox, the owner of the ox, did not guard the ox. Those words are only said relative to a muad. They are not said relative to a tam, even though obviously that's what happened with the tam also. Because he wasn't holding on to the ox. Because he was holding on to the ox, he wouldn't have gored the second ox. So obviously he wasn't holding on to the ox. But he gored it anyway. And therefore he gored it. Okay. He doesn't have to expect that. I get it. But he still wasn't watching it. Right? Okay. But it didn't say that in the first case. But it did say that in the second case. Now, there is a simple reason to explain why it would be said in the second case, and regardless of Rabbi Yehuda, why might I say it only in the case of muad and not in the case of tam? That he didn't guard it? Simply. Which ox would I think I have to guard?
The thumb.
No. The muad, the one who I expect to do damage. I should be guarding him, right? So I didn't. Okay. Simple shot. Which seems to be how everybody else learns it. But Rabbi Yehuda says, why is this here? Oh, what's it teaching me? Let's see. Shenemar v'lo yishmerenu bailav. Relative to the muad, what did the pasuk say? The master didn't guard, the owner didn't guard it. V'shamur hu zeh, and this one is guarded. What's this one? Okay, we don't know. Hold on, wait 1 second. Before I just to make sure that I want everybody on the same page. I read those words and I'm not sure what they're referring to. Okay, take a step back. Who's speaking, and what information is he trying to teach me from this verse? First question first. Who's speaking? Rabbi Yehuda is speaking. What? Wait, slow. What is Rabbi Yehuda trying to teach me? All right.
Why tam is chayav and muad is potter.
Right. So really, I'm only interested in why the muad is the other way around. Why the tam is chayav and the muad is potter. I want to know why in this case should a muad be potter. True? That's the anomaly of Rabbi Yehuda, right? True?
Yes, that's the difference.
Isn't that right? Isn't that what Rabbi Yehuda said?
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi said, you have a cow that's an aggressive cow, right? What did you do to that cow? What's the case? Our Mishnah that we're learning right now, Tanan. What did you do with that cow? The beginning of the Mishnah. What did you do with it? You either tied it up or you locked it up, right? Okay. And then what happened? The cow got out and wiped out some other cow, which is his want. Okay. What's the halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda if he's a muad? You're potter. Why? Simple pshat. Before you see his drasha, simple pshat. Evidently, what's he saying? You did what you're supposed to do. But there's a problem, because what does Rabbi Yehuda say relative to a tam? Where you wouldn't expect the cow to go do any damage. In that case, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Hi. Yeah, so that's what I don't understand. I don't get it. If Rabbi Yehuda said potter all the way through, so I'd say, okay, fine, because he guarded it. He guarded
saying that you should guard it regardless. No?
Well, that's what's interesting. He's not saying that. He's saying relative to the tam, you're chayiv for whatever reason. But relative to the muad, you're potter. Why? Because there's a verse that tells us that you're potter. And what does that verse say? When are you chayiv for a muad that does damage? When you didn't guard it. But in our case, what did you do? You guarded it. Minimally, but you did. You can't say you didn't guard it, because what did you do? You did one of two things, or both. Tied it up and or locked it up. So you guarded it. Minimally, fine, but you guarded it. And therefore, what's the pasuk coming to tell me? By adding those words that he didn't guard it, that if he did guard it, even minimally, then what? Potter. Do those words exist by tam? No. So therefore, by tam, is minimal guarding enough? No. No. Meaning, even though intuitively you would assume that tam is less strict than muad, well, it is intuitively less strict. But there happens to be a verse that says, God said that muad is less strict than tam. Why? By adding 3 words. That's how Rabbi Yehuda is learning that pasuk. The words are only said relative to muad. Those words are not said relative to tam. The first case was the tam. That's why you had to read it. You have to read. That's why, if you didn't read the case about tam above this, the pasuk before, you wouldn't have a clue what's going on here. That's why you have to always read things in context. So, read a verse or two before. In this case, you only need one, right? In the case of the tam, he's chayav. Why? That's the garter. What does that mean? You have to make sure it doesn't touch anything. And if it touches something, you're chayav. That's the way it goes. In the case of muad, he's pater. Well, not in the pasuk. In the pasuk, he's chayav. Why is he chayav in the pasuk? Because the verse tells me. Why is he obligated?
For the muad?
For the muad. Because he didn't guard it. What does Rabbi Yehuda learn from that? What does he have to do? Minimal guarding. Minimal guarding. Then you can't say it wasn't guarded. That's not true. It was. I tied it up. I didn't tie it up with a rope that is so strong that it couldn't possibly get free, but I tied it up. I mean, I did a minimal guard, What does that mean? So I don't know, but I'm throwing out a number, and don't take this number seriously. Halachic, I'm saying 9 out of 10 times I'm going to come back and he's going to be there. 20 out of 21 times I'm going to come back, he's going to be there. So that's called guarding, all right? When the cowboy goes to the saloon, right, and they have those bars, and what does he do? He takes the reins and he throws them around the bar, right? That's all he does, right? He throws them around the bar and walks into the bar or into the sheriff's office, depending where he's walking. There's only 2 places he ever goes, or maybe the general store, right? Because he's in love with the girl behind the counter in the general store, right? Okay. So wherever he goes in the cowboy movie, right? How does he put his horse? He just takes the reins and puts them around once. And then if the horse tries to get away, he pulls, what happens? It's stuck. It's leather, right? It's stuck. It doesn't slip. Okay, so that's perfectly good way of locking up a horse, right? And the horse is stupid. So he if he's trying to get away, he's going to keep pulling, and the more he pulls, the tighter it's going to get, and less likely he's going to get away. If he wants to get away, what should he do? Just walk around the pole. The thing will fall off, and he can walk away. But he's a horse. He's an idiot, right? They got that little head and that little brain. Nice, okay. Big nose with a little head. Right? Okay, right. So he doesn't ever think of doing that. That's why God made horses the way He made horses. Okay. So that's enough, Rabbi Yehuda says. Lo yishmerenu bailav. Those words teach me that minimal guarding is enough. And now that we've learned it, that's perfectly reasonable based on what the verse said. Without the verse, I would never come to that conclusion. I get it, but that's what the verse said. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Look at it. Why does it say Lo yishmerenu bailav, that the owner didn't guard the sheep, the ox? Why does it only say that relative to muad? Because it's only relevant relative to muad. Tam, you're always obligated. You guarded it, you didn't guard, it doesn't matter. Minimal, I mean, you could, if you locked it up in a steel cage with a padlock, so then you could say, look, I think this is an accident. This doesn't make sense. Lightning hit it and it melted away. Okay, that's an accident. But this isn't an accident. It's just, most of the time it's going to stay there. It's very unusual for it not to stay there. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. So says Rabbi Yehuda. Let's go further. Rabbi Eliezer Eimer ein lo shmira elasakin. That what?
The only proper way of guarding a muad is to kill it.
Right. Now you would think he's talking about a muad. I agree with you. Right? Though, I mean, because that is the issue in the Mishnah, but I mean, it is true that we were talking about both tam and muad. But I think you're right. We were probably talking about a muad because, after all, if we paskin like Rabbi Eliezer, then there would never be a muad.
We
Right? Because as soon as the animal did damage, what would you do to it?
This is a question. This is the answer for the original question.
We're not going to. We haven't finished this Mishnah. We are not talking about our Gemara yet at all. Right? We're not in. Our Gemara doesn't exist. All we're doing is this Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer is a third position, and what is he saying? I think he's right. We're probably talking about the muad, not necessarily the tam. If you have an ox that's a muad, is there any way you can be putter for relative to guarding that ox? No. The only way you're putter is what?
Killing.
Shechter. If you shechted it and you ate it, you put it in your cholent, then it gets some indigestion, so you're putter for the damage that the cow did to the person's digestive tract. But once the cow, I would assume Tzvi is right, that he's talking about a muad. Once the cow is a muad, then you're always obligated, no matter what damage he does, even if you locked it up under lock and key mamish. There's no such thing as shmira ru'ya, proper shmira for a muad. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, 3 positions. But we're not taking this back to our Gemara yet. We have to say Pshat in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir said what? What was Rabbi Meir's halacha? They're all talking about the same case, right? Mm-hmm. You tied this thing up and or you locked it up, it went out and did damage. Whether it's a tam or a muad, what does Rabbi Meir say? No? You just read the words, you don't have to think.
You're obligated.
What? Right? Echad tam ve'echad muad, chayiv. Even Rabbi Meir, you're obligated. Why? Why are you obligated? Go to Rabbi Meir. Yeah, this is minimal guarding. That's not enough for an ox. You have to, it has to be under lock and key. That's not enough what you did. Throw a reins around the pole, it'll pull down the pole. That's not enough. Okay. Manyan. That's Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir clearly says you need serious. Is there such a thing called serious guarding according to Rabbi Meir? According to Rabbi Meir, I would assume so. I don't know what it is, but there probably is such a thing. Right? Okay. Along comes Rabbi Yehuda, and what does Rabbi Yehuda say?
You know that this wasn't.
This wasn't it. B'diuk. This is clearly shmir pchusa. Right? Now we know that because those words mean something to us. Because in all fairness, we're not learning this in a vacuum. We have to learn some information that we're allowed to know. Right? We also know what an ox is. Right? Okay. Ox. What's an ox? It's a big animal. I don't have to tell you that. I know that. Why? Because I've been alive. So I've been alive long enough to know that there's something called shmir pchusa and regular shmir. I also know that. I'm allowed to know that. Okay. So Rabbi Meir says this is shmir pchusa and that's not enough. You're chayav. Along comes Rabbi Yehuda, and what does he say?
You're obligated for a tam.
Right. You're obligated for tam because shmir pchusa is not enough for a tam. Right? But for a muad you're potter because shmir pchusa is enough for a muad. Why? Because the pasuk says so. Right? Not because it's intuitive. It's not intuitive, but the pasuk says so. Okay. Right. Okay. So whenever you see a machlekes, you always ask the same question: what do they agree about and what do they disagree about? So what do they agree about? Find the case they agree about. Very simple. Tam. They agree about the tam. That shmir pchusa is not enough, and they disagree about the muad. Okay. Along comes Rabbi Eliezer and says what? The only way to guard it is shechted. You can't guard it. Okay. So now we have to look at Rabbi Eliezer relative to everybody. So I assume that now, again, if he's talking about both tam and muad, then he disagrees with everybody about everything. Right? If he's only talking about muad, then they all agree about tam, that you're chayav. Right? Because shmir pchusa is not enough. But what do they also agree about relative to tam? If Rabbi Eliezer is only talking about a muad, what do they all agree about relative to tam? Shmir pchusa is not enough, but what is there? Theoretically.
A way to make it.
A way to guard it properly. What that is, I don't know. We haven't learned that. But if you put it under lock and key in a metal prison, right? So would that be enough? Yes. I mean, what do you want me to do? Right? There's a 15-foot electric fence locked, and this thing is in there. Okay, so that's called locked up. And it doesn't have to be 15 feet. It has to be big enough so the thing can't jump over it, and the oxen can't jump over anything too high, right? They're pretty big. Right? Okay. Remember once in the Ramat Gan Zoo, which is in a really good zoo. I guess it's the Tel Aviv Zoo, but it's in Ramat Gan. So they have two parts to the zoo. They have the zoo part, and they have also a safari where you drive through and the animals are just walking around. So there's a very large place. I mean, it's not, as large as where elephants usually hang out, but there's a very large, like, it's not a cage, it's like this huge big place with water for elephants. Right? Now it was very interesting. When we were there was one elephant that was closed up in a pen, wooden pen, but he closed up in a wooden pen off to the side, away from all the other elephants. So there was someone feeding the elephant. We asked him, why is he over there? He's been beating up all the elephants. Right? Hell, they had to separate him from all the other elephants. He's been beating them. Now, an elephant beating someone up is like serious. They're pretty big elephants, right? So it was really interesting. They had made a pen for him, and that was obviously not shmir pchusa, right? They had him in there so he couldn't get out. Now it wasn't metal and it wasn't locked with a padlock, but it was something good enough to keep a full-grown male elephant in. You can imagine, strong enough. Okay, it was made of wood, slats, fences, logs. Okay. He was in there and not getting out. Okay, so that would be considered a reasonable, obviously they know what they're doing. That's going to be a reasonable shmir. And if someone owned that elephant and that elephant got out, so according to Rabbi Yehuda and according to Rabbi Meir, what would we assume the halacha is? If that elephant got out in that situation, even though I'd locked him up as butter, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, it was an act of God that he got out. I don't know how he got out. How did he get out? Okay. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the elephant's alive. You're fine.
Another elephant would come out, then it would be
What?
higher, like a tam, no?
I don't know, Tom. Muad. We're talking muad. We assume we're talking muad. If an elephant's probably a muad anyway. But if that were a cow locked up like that elephant were locked out, or an ox, and it got out someone and it did damage, so we assume Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda would both agree that you're potter, and Rabbi Eliezer would say you're chayev. As long as that thing's alive, anything it does, you're chayev. There is no way of guarding it. There's one way, shechter. Right? Okay, so Rabbi Meir, both tam and muad, chayev l'shmir pchusa. But real shmira, potter, right? True? Rabbi Yehuda, tam shmir pchusa. What's Rabbi Yehuda's halacha? Tam is chayev, and shor and muad is potter because of the pasuk. Rabbi Eliezer, simple pshat. Tam, minimal guarding. Minimal guarding. Tam, Rabbi Eliezer. Everybody holds chayev, right? I assume he also holds chayev, right? Everybody holds minimal guarding for a tam is going to be chayev, right? Muad, chayev no matter what. There's no way of guarding a muad, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so there's really a three-way machlokas. They have three different positions. Right? And if you want, is there a pen over there? If you want to really understand it, so you write yourself in shards. There's different ways of writing the chart, but let's do it this way. You could probably do it this way. Right? Okay? Tam, Muad. Right? Minimal, maximum. Yeah? Okay, now, put Rabbi Meir. Well, I tell you what, put him over here and we'll just do them all the way across. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer. Also down here, okay. So, in a case of minimal guarding with a tam, what does Rabbi Meir say? Right. That's Rabbi Meir. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? Tam, minimal guarding. Right. And what does Rabbi Eliezer probably say? Right, they all say that. Okay. A tam, maximal guarding. What does Rabbi Meir say? Yeah, potter. What do we assume Rabbi Yehuda says? Potter. And what does Rabbi Eliezer probably say? Probably also potter, because we assume he's only talking about it. Right? Okay. Now, so they all agree about the tam. They agree about the tam in any situation. There's no machlekes about the tam. Only machlekes about the muad. Okay. A muad, minimal guarding. What does Rabbi Meir say? No, read. You have to think. All you have to do is read. Alright. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? Potter. Right? That's what Yishmael Bailam. What does Rabbi Eliezer say? Probably higher, right? Even though he wasn't talking about that, we assume that, minimal guarding, you're going to be higher. Why would I think otherwise? Right? Okay. Maximal guarding, Rabbi Meir, a muad. What would he probably say? Potter. What would Rabbi Yehuda say? Potter. What would Rabbi Eliezer say? Higher. That's our Mishnah. Right? True. And when you do it like that, you see exactly what they disagree about. Right? So Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda disagree in this case. Minimal guarding of a muad, but they agree in maximal guarding.
But we can be 100%.
Can't be 100% sure about Rabbi Eliezer in this case. That's the only case. These two for sure.
Yeah?
For sure. Maximal, yeah, 100%. If you did everything you can do, then you're a putter. I mean, that's just, there's nothing you can do. We assume Rabbi Eliezer would agree. Yeah? So when you do that, and in all fairness, that wasn't very hard. That didn't take a lot of creativity, right? It is a little tricky because you've got two variables, and three opinions, right? Okay, Beseder. So, you could theoretically make three boxes, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer, right? And then two other boxes, two-level Talmud, and then minimal, maximal right inside. Okay, but I think, I just think this is easier to put the people inside. But you can do it however you want, right? Okay. And it's very, which is really interesting. Once you do that, it's really fascinating. Tam, no machlekes. Everybody seems to understand Tam the same way. It becomes an issue with muad. Aleph, because of Rabbi Yehuda's pasuk, right? Muad becomes an issue of minimal guarding in that case. And what in the world the source of Rabbi Eliezer for saying his draconian shot about who knows? I mean, he just says it like, you're chayav. It doesn't matter what you did, unless you killed it, you're chayav. Where did he get that? Where'd that come from? Right? Okay. Now, I'm not saying this is where he gets it, but it is interesting. If he darshans our pasuk very loosely, he could say that in the case of muad, lo yishmerenu bailav is an existential state. The Baal can't guard it. Right? There's no guarding, which is basically what he's saying. Is that what he's learning from? Well, it's not here, so we don't know. Okay. You guys went further, so let's go a little further. Afilu tema Rabbi Meir. Even say, I'm sorry, we didn't put it back in, then we finished, and then we have to put it back in our Gemara. Okay, put this Mishnah back in our Gemara. What were we looking for? What question did we ask, and how does this Mishnah answer the question? Our question was, what did Rav Mani Bar Patish ask?
Who's
the author of our Mishnah? And what does our Mishnah say? That minimal guarding is enough for a muad. Shein and regular muad, right? Okay. It's got to be Rabbi Yehuda, right? Because Rabbi Yehuda is the only one who says that in the case of a muad, that you're a putter if you have minimal guarding, right? Okay, there it is. Pretty clear. True? Aaron? Yeah? You look.
There's not the
Speculative.
one that says it, Rabbi.
What? Rabbi Yehuda says that in the case of a muad with minimal guarding, you're putter. Minimal.
Agree.
Right? Everybody agrees about that. Everybody. Rabbi Eliezer with his, but right. So right. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that because of the drasha of lo yishmerenu bailav, because of that drasha, if minimal guarding for a muad is sufficient. and therefore he's the author of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah is talking about a case of minimal guarding. That's what we've decided. That's what Mani Bar Patash told us, right? We didn't necessarily know that, but he told us that, well, this is minimal guarding, and the muad's pater. So who must have said that? Well, it must have been Rabbi Yehuda, because he's the one that holds that in the case of minimal guarding, you're pater. Yeah? True? Okay. Now, before we go any further, there is something that we should all notice. In what realm of damage was Rabbi Yehuda's statement regarding minimal damage? Minimal guarding, that you're pater. In what realm? When I say realm, I mean what type of damage?
They have to pay everything.
No, okay, that's the halacha. Karen. Aggressive behavior.
Why are we talking about
What
that?
were we talking about?
So,
Okay, which means we were talking not about Karen, but about Shane and Reagan. Now, they're muad. So clearly that's why the Gemara is saying what it's saying, right? The Gemara is saying, well, muad is muad. I mean, is it expected or not expected? And according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it's expected, minimal guarding is enough because of this, because there's a cause. Let's turn this all into Rav Mani Bar Patish, okay? He's saying it all. That's what Rav Mani Bar Patish is saying at this point. All right? That in the case of a muad, I don't care whether I'm talking Karen, Shane, Regel, doesn't matter. A muad, minimal guarding is sufficient. And that's why our Mishnah, which was written by Rabbi Yehuda, says that if the sheep got out and trampled the guy's roses next door, the owner of the sheep is pater. Why? He closed the gate. Right? Closed the gate in a way that a normal wind wouldn't open it. If he knows there's not going to be a normal wind tonight, because the weather's been talking about serious winds tonight. I'm not talking hurricanes, right? So I guess, it's reasonable for the guy next door to say, whoa, you put boards up on your windows in your house. You should have made sure that your pen was closed tighter, shouldn't you? Okay, that's a reasonable claim, because this is the normal wind for tonight is going to be stronger than the normal wind normally. Why? And theoretically, I should know that. If I don't know that, then I don't know that. Okay, so it's possible I don't know that. You and I know that because you and I usually are aware of what the weather's going to be like for the next day or two, right? Usually, not always, but usually. Right? And if there's going to be unusual weather, for sure we're going to know about it, right? Because people talk about it. There's a storm coming. Oh, yeah? Right? When you go traveling, what's the first thing you do? Check the weather for Vienna and Milan. No rain. Don't have to take a raincoat. A shed. Don't have room for a raincoat. Okay. Afilu tema Rabbi Meir. Even say, and I added one word, it is Rabbi Meir. Even say it is Rabbi Meir. What is it? Every time you see a pronoun, he, she, it, they, you have to attach that pronoun to
That's
something
the author.
specific. That the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. Beautiful. Even say the author of our, meaning you could even say that Rabbi Meir wrote our Mishnah. Okay, why is that an even? What did Rabbi Meir say in the Mishnah we just quoted? In the case of a muad, what did Rabbi Meir say? That you're chayiv with minimal guarding. And here we have a case of muad that you are, in our Mishnah, pater. In a case of minimal guarding, right? So how can you say it's Rabbi Meir? Well, let's see. Well, it's going to be based on what we just noticed. Shani, what's Shani mean? Different. Shane v'regel. Shane and regel are different. Different than what? Karen, beautiful. It's a one-word answer, right? That's the perfect answer. Now, I could say that in 10 words, but it's better to say it in one. Shane and Regel are different than Karen. That Mishnah we just talked about, what case was it talking about? One-word answer. The Mishnah we just quoted with Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, what was the case? Karen. Karen is violent behavior. It means a horn. right? So what the animal does with his horn, right? He doesn't trample with his horn. He doesn't eat with his horn. He beats up other things with his horn. Okay. What? Oh, and what's our case? We've decided Shein and Regel. Why have we decided our case is Shein and Regel? First of all, if you look further in the Mishnah, that's what it's talking about: how much he ate and how much he benefited, etc. Okay, fine. But also, we also said, even in the first case, where it's not necessarily so, why is it pretty clear we're talking about Shein? Because it's its own, right? We're talking about a sheep. We're not talking about a cow. We're talking about a sheep. So it seems that the sheep is sheep. You're not the Indian with sheep is not violent behavior. Shein and Regel. Oh, so maybe it's different. So whereas in the case of Karen, what would Rabbi Meir say about minimal guarding? In the case of Karen, what would he say? Rabbi Meir, you don't have to think, you just have to read. Chayev, he says it. Echad tam ve'echad muad chayev. Right? But in the case of Shein, he might still say Pater. And that's our Mishnah. Let's see. Shani Shein v'regel dahatara mi'ata b'shmiratan. That the Torah did what? Limited their guarding. Okay, so fill those words in so it makes a little more sense. What does it mean it limited its guarding? Meaning it limited the need for guarding, right? Just like, according to whom? Where have we seen a limitation of guarding? Where have we seen that before? We've all just saw it.
You said it was the minimum one?
Rabbi Yehuda, didn't Rabbi Yehuda say the Torah goes out of its way to minimize the guarding necessary for a muad? That's exactly what those words, Lo Yishmenu Bailev, came to teach. Oh, so evidently, just like those words exist according to Rabbi Yehuda in the case of Karen, right? So too evidently, there's going to be words in the case of, give me two cases, not Karen, but rather Shein and Regel, where the psukim go out of their way to do what? What did we just say? Limit the need for guarding. So in our language, what does that mean, limit the need for guarding? What guarding is sufficient? Minimal guarding. Right? We're going to find psukim that evidently, that's what we're saying, right? We haven't seen the psukim yet, but we know exactly where we're going. There are psukim in the Torah that evidently limit the need for more serious guarding in the case of Shein and Regel. Now, it's going to bring four things. Okay, you and I are only interested in Shein and Regel. Once we quote Rabbi Elazar, so we're going to learn all four, and we're going to learn them all together and not connected to our Gemara yet. Then we're going to go back and say, okay, so the Shein and Regel part are relevant to our Gemara. Okay? So if our Gemara was talking about Karen, Rabbi Yehuda couldn't have written our Mishnah. If our Mishnah was talking about Karen, Rabbi Yehuda couldn't have written our Mishnah. Why? Because our Mishnah says minimal guarding is enough in the case, if our Mishnah were talking about Karen. The minimal guarding is enough in the case of Karen. Our Mishnah is not talking about Karen. Our Mishnah is talking about Shein and Regel. So even though Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that you need serious guarding in the case of Karen, wait, well, let me finish my sentence first. That even though in the Mishnah we just learned Rabbi Meir holds in the case of Karen, if you think case halacha, it will all be clear. Because this is all just case halacha. That's exactly what the Gemara is doing. The Mishnah you just quoted was in the case of Karen. That's when Rabbi Meir requires serious guarding. But who says he requires serious guarding in the case of Shein and Regel? Maybe in that case he thinks that minimal guarding is enough, and that's our Mishnah because we're talking about a sheep. Right? So we're saying case halacha, case halacha, case halacha. Yes, Tzvi, what do you want to say?
This is only regarding the crime, yeah? Because any other,
This is that whole Mishnah over there is Karen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Because Tam and Muad.
would be muad in every...
Right. There's no such thing as Tam in any of them. Exactly. That is Karen by definition. And if you look at the pasuk that Rabbi Yehuda quoted, it's also a Karen pasuk. That's what it's talking about in that pasuk, right? And now what psukim are we going to start to see? Psukim about the Shein, Regel, Bor, Eish. Okay. So let's do some of them and then we'll stop because it's getting late. There's no Chumash questions today, right?
That's a good question.
Well, they weren't on the Bima, right?
No, we'll have.
You didn't have questions.
We'll have maybe Rabbi Wichman will discuss the parsha.
Oh, Rabbi Wichman might do a special class, a Rabbi Wichman class? Every class of Rabbi Wichman's a special class, isn't it? Okay. Let's see. The Torah Miyat Bishmir. The Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar, who's an Israeli, an Eretz Yisrael Dika Amora. Va'amre la b'masnisin. Amre la means there are those that say, meaning there's a tradition. It might very well be that it's a baraisa. Tana, arba devarim, 4 things. Hatara mi'ata b'shmirasan. 4 things the Torah limited their guarding. And when we say that, what do we mean? That the Torah limited the guarding, meaning the Torah limited the need for guarding, right? The type of guarding necessary is limited, right? That's what that means, i.e. minimal guarding. Ve'eluhain, what are those 4 things? Bor, ve'esh, shein, ve'regel. The 4 avos nezikin. The 4 categories of damage. This is the whole tower of damages, except 1 category, Karen. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, even in Karen it also did, right? Relative to a muad, not relative to a tam. But in all 4 categories of damage, according to Rabbi Elazar, according to this baraisa, the Torah goes out of its way to limit the need for shmirah. In other words, what would that mean for us? What's sufficient? Minimal guarding is sufficient. Bidyuk. Right? Now I already know my answer. Before I do anything, I already know my answer. Right? Shein and Regel, according to what we're about to see, Shein and Regel, what's sufficient guarding? Minimal. That's our mission. Fine? Okay? So even though Rabbi Meir said what he said over there, okay, but first, what do we have to do before we do that? It's just so obvious that that's what's about to happen, that we're allowed to think that, right? When you read words, you're always looking ahead. Okay, so it's sort of obvious what's going to happen. So now it's all just, it's as obvious as it is what's going to happen. You and I have to learn how it happens, right? What are the drushes that teach us relative to these 4 cases that minimal guarding is enough? Okay, I know what my conclusion is at the end of every drusha. Every drusha and this is what we talked about on Thursday. Every drusha we're about to see, what's it going to teach me? Minimal guarding is enough. How does it teach me that? I don't know. I have to figure that out. So it doesn't matter. I know what the conclusion is. No. This is Talmud Torah. If you want conclusions, read Kitchus Shulchan Aruch. We want to learn Torah. How does the Torah come to this conclusion? Oh, from these drushes. Well, we have to learn the drushes. Drushes are hard. You have to get used to how Chazal read words in the Torah. It takes time. These ones are not that hard, but I think you probably found these also difficult. Like, what do they want exactly? What are they getting at? Okay, did you do these drushes? Okay, so let's do, I'd like to do 2 of them and leave 2 of them. Let's do 2 together now. We'll go finish a little late, okay, it's Pesach. Mashiach's still coming. Right, we'll do 2, and I'll leave you 2. And then I'll give you words further, okay? Let's see. Oh, let me just tell you before I forget. The Luach Zmanim. I'm going away for Chayalol. I'm unfortunately missing a rather major event in life in general, and in the life of this class in particular, and the life of Shmuel even more particular. But I think the life of all of us, because I think all of us agree that we love him very much. He's a special person. And it's a big simcha for all of us. But I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Milan. I don't know. So anyway, so Wednesday is a regular day with us. I'm going to leave fast at like 12 o'clock, 12:15, because I have a 3 o'clock plane. Okay, so I'm going to probably just leave from here. I'll walk to the train station, go to the plane. I'm not here Thursday, but that's not a problem. Thursday morning, there probably will not be Chassidus because there's a Farbrengen Wednesday night, and it's Chayel. And if the Farbrengen finishes early enough to have Chassidus the next day, something happened. Right? And Thursday is review day for us, so I'm not worried about you guys. We're not going to have a shiur anyway. So you'll do review, and you're all adults, and the only one not doing review will be Shmuel, and maybe someone who's supposed to hang around with them all day. I don't know how that works. Right, okay, if he's got someone hanging around with him all day, which he's supposed to have, so then that person also won't be doing review. And if Shmuel and their chavus and his shemer are doing review that day, just tell him to stop. He's getting married and to think about something else other than whether or not you have to guard an ox from eating flowers. Okay, there's other things happening that day.
Do we have minimal garden care as well?
He just needs minimal guarding. Okay. So now Sunday there also won't be chassidus because we're saying slichus Motzi Shabbos and that's late. So generally the Sunday after slichus there's not chassidus just because first of all there's a Shabbos, you're bringing all Shabbos. Then there's a bringing right before slichus and you dance into slichus. And the Rebbe also always said you're supposed to dance geshuckled, which means you're dancing a little crooked because you said some lines in the bringing before. Right? So it's a while, and then there's dancing after, and you get to sleep late, and so there's generally not chassidus. The only class that's being affected by me being slovenly and disappearing is our Gemara class Sunday, and before I leave, we'll know what's happening with that. Okay, there will be a Gemara class Sunday. Probably won't be Rabbi Levinger because Rabbi Levinger is probably going to be teaching Rabbi Kaufman's Gemara class Sunday because Rabbi Kaufman's also not going to be here.
Chassidut on Thursday.
There won't be because there's going to be for bringing Wednesday night.
okay.
So Chassidus is covered. That's why I didn't feel, this was like an easy trip to, the worst thing by the trip was missing Shmuel's wedding. But, and my wife's going to have a good time with our daughter with their cute little kids and I'll miss out, but that's okay. It's part of the deal. So Sunday Gemara. Between now and Wednesday, obviously, I'll figure out what's going to happen. There will be a shiur Sunday morning. Someone will be teaching a class Sunday morning. They're probably not going to do it the way we do it, okay? But exactly the way we all do it together. Make sure you just know what's going on and further. I'll make sure that you have words quite a ways down before I leave Wednesday, okay? So you'll have a lot to do. won't like we're sitting, the poor guys are wandering around. Nothing to do. I've learned all the Torah I'm supposed to learn. There's no Torah left. Okay. Let's see two of these drushes. Now we've got our Kumashim. We're gonna don't go too far. We're pushing one chapter over. We're gonna be in Shmeis Chaf base. Okay, and we're gonna learn all the psukim about the damages. What are those four categories where the need for guarding was limited? Bor, which is a pit, Aish, which is fire, Shane, which is an animal eating things, and Regel, an animal trampling things. Okay, the first two we learned are Bor and Aish, which of course are not relevant to our sugya, but that's okay. We're not worried about our sugya. We want to say pshat in this first. We're ignoring our sugya right now. Bor. What does it say? Dichsiv, and we'll look up the pasuk. It's in Shmeis Chaf Aleph. It's still Chaf Aleph. Lamed Gimel. It's two psukim before where we just looked, right? Ki yiftach ish. I'm just reading in the Gemara, then we'll see it inside. Ki yiftach ish bor. When a person opens up a pit, or ki yichra ish bor, or he digs a pit, v'lo yichasenu, and he doesn't cover it. Okay, let's look at the pasuk. If those are the words in the pasuk. Okay, it's exactly the same place we just were. If the pages moved a little, so just move back. Okay? Yeah? Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Above what we just read relative to Muad. Yeah? Everybody has it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Ki yiftach ish bor. A person opens up a pit. Or ki yichra ish bor. Or he digs a pit. Okay, so what, obviously you reading this verse, what do you now have to explain? Regardless of what Gemara, it has nothing to do with Gemara, just simple pshat in the verse.
Why?
Why are you digging your pit?
No, because he's a maniac.
What's the difference between opening and digging?
What's the difference between opening and digging? I don't understand. I mean, if he opened it, didn't he dig it? Oh, so what could opening be? He didn't dig it, but what did he do?
Open the cover.
He uncovered it. Fair. If he so opening means uncovered, right? What does it say in English? It might even say that. It just says open. Good for them. I'm glad they just said open because that's the proper translation. And don't tell everybody what it means. Just translate it and let them learn Rashi and figure out what it means, right? Because you have to ask the question that Ian just asked, and it's a good question. Wait a minute, I understand. like what's opening if not digging? No, different. So we'll say if he uncovered a pit or dug a pit, right? So there's a hole in the middle of the street. What's it covered with? Most holes in the middle of the street, which exist all over the place, what are they covered with? Manholes all over the place, right? Every street that you've ever walked on, there's manholes, right? Okay, what did this lunatic do? No, he took off the manhole, right? What are you, out of your mind? What are you doing? Oh, so that's the first guy. The second guy, look at this, a street without a hole with a manhole. I better make a hole in the street. And he made a hole in the street. Why? I never cared. Reuven killed Shimon. Why? Because he's a lunatic. Because only a raving lunatic would kill another person. Okay, but he did it. I don't care why. He's off his rock. But that's the way it goes. Okay. V'nafal shama shar or chamar, and it fell in there an ox or a donkey. Right? It doesn't say chayav, but it doesn't say anything. Right? I'm sorry, below yichaseni, he didn't cover it. V'nafal shama shar chamar. Baal habor, the owner of the bore. Now that itself is an interesting thing. What do you mean the owner of the bore? No one owns the bore. It's in the middle of the street. Okay, the guy who's responsible for the bore. Yishalem kesef yashiv l'baylav. He should pay money. You should return to the owners. Obviously, those words yashiv l'baylav are extra, and you have to figure out what that means. But that's not our issue. V'meisi eloi. I mean, when you learn these psukim, you realize why there's Bava Kama, Bava Metzi, and Bava Basa. There's so much Gemara on all of these things, because every single pasuk is just full of extra information that you can't figure out when you read the pasuk simply. It's got all these extra words and things that don't seem necessary. And there's so much halacha learned from every verse, right? That word, he should pay, he should return to the owner. Well, of course he's returning to the owner. I mean, he's paying. Why does it have to say he returns to the owner? Does he pay him? So he pays, and the dead animal will be his, meaning the ox that fell in the pit, so he can keep the ox, but he has to pay for the damage that was done to the ox. Okay, fine. Or maybe it means that the owner gets the ox and he pays the difference between the full price of the ox and the ox and the damage done. Okay, whatever it means, we don't know. Okay, but that's the verse. A guy who opened the pit or dug a pit. And then it adds two words that seem somewhat superfluous. What are those two words?
They fell into.
No, that's later, before that.
Below you.
And he didn't cover it up.
Yeah.
Well, of course he didn't cover it up. I mean, like what? Right? I mean, if he covered it up, certainly the guy who opened it and then he covered it up, so he didn't do anything. Right? Even the guy who dug it, he covered up. So what do you mean, lo yichasenu? Right? Oh, so what do we learn? What do those words teach us? But lo yichasenu, he didn't cover it up. Ha, behold, what? Kisao, if he did cover it up, he's potter. Oh, now what does it not tell me? What did he cover it up with? Now, obviously, he didn't cover it up with straw that anybody who's going to step on is going to fall right through. But evidently, based on what we're learning in this Baraisa, what did he cover it up with? So it's some metal manhole or something minimal. Minimal. Covered up minimally. Right? Now, he can't cover it up something, and this comes up in Perek HaManiach. Perek HaManiach is all about bore, Bava Kama. And I think Rabbi Kaplan is learning Perek HaManiach, if I'm not mistaken. It's all about bore. And there are all sorts of very, very interesting halachas about bore, right? Like you dug a pit, but you covered it up. But you covered it up with wood that will hold an ox, but it won't hold a camel. Okay, well, who walks by? If only oxen walk by, then you're fine. But if camels walk by all the time, then that's negligent. That's not minimal guarding. That's negligent, because a camel is going to step on this and fall in. So it has to be minimal guarding that will deal with, but what would be maximum guarding of a hole?
An elephant will step on it.
Now, okay, so an elephant could step on it, but there's even better. You dug a hole in the middle of the...
You're filling all in.
Fill it up. Fill it up. The maximal guarding is fill it up. Cover it. What are you, maniac? You dug a hole in the middle of the street. Now you're going to cover it up? Fill it up. Who are you to dig holes in the middle of the street? No, covering it up is okay. That's interesting, right? That's what we just learned. Ha, kisao, behold, he, just like we said, lo yishmerenu bailav. He didn't guard it. Ha, if he did guard it, even minimally, that's okay. So too, same drasha, right? Ha, kisao, behold, he covered it. Potter, even if he didn't fill it up. Because I mean, if your kid decided to take a shovel and dig a big hole in your backyard, what do you tell him to do? Fill it up. What are you doing? Put the dirt back. Right? That's what you tell him to do. Is that what you tell this nudnik who did this in the middle of the street? No, not necessarily. Cover it up. If he covered it up, he's potter. He covered it up with a piece of wood. It might not be so comfortable. It might be that every car that goes over the wood goes, boom, 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 but it's not thick enough for the car to drive over. So then that's, I mean, no cars are going to fall into these holes, but right. Remember once seeing a headline in a newspaper that bus falls into pothole, 180 people dead. But depends what country the bus was in, and I'm like, how big was the pothole? How big was the bus? Okay. Seder. So that's bor. So what did we just learn from bor? Minimal guarding is acceptable. What's minimal guarding? You do not have to fill it up. You just have to cover it. How do I know that? It says he didn't cover it. That means if he did cover it, he's fine. Okay. Eish. Let's just see this one, then we'll stop. Eish. Dichsiv. Now we have to look up the psukim. Shalem yishalem mavir asa be'era. Ad da'avid ke'ein mavir. Stop. Okay. First, let's look up the pasuk. Then we'll come back to the Gemara and see how the Gemara is doing. Okay. So just keep going. Same page. Exactly the same page in the book. We turn into chapter 22. Chapter 21 and chapter 22 is all Baba. The Bava Metzia, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. All in Mishpatim. Okay, in the Parsha of Mishpatim, which is right after Matan Torah. These are all the laws that Moshe learned in Matan Torah. Okay, so Pasuk Dalid. I'm sorry, Pasuk Hey. We're going to see Dalid in a minute. That's the next thing you're going to have to look at. So don't close the books. Kiseitse eish, if fire goes out, umatza keitsim, breaks out?
Yeah.
Goes out means like kibui.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, okay. It goes, but I mean goes out meaning it's going out, it's traveling out, it's spreading, right?
Yeah.
You're right, you're right. If the fire goes out, that means, okay, you're right. So if a fire spreads, all right. Umatza kaitzim, and what happens? It finds thorns, and what do the thorns do? Spread the they start burning like crazy, and the fire spreads. V'nechal godish, and it nechal is consumed. It's consumed. A godish. What's godish? Godish is it's crop, but it's standing. It's godish is. I'm sorry. Godish is usually the wheat that's already been harvested and it's in a pile. Sheaves. It says here, right? Oy hakama. Kama means standing wheat. It does not mean standing corn. That is a ridiculous translation. Why is that a ridiculous translation? Where's corn from?
America.
Corn is from the New World. There was no corn in the part of the world that the Torah is talking about. Now, that doesn't mean that the Hebrew doesn't know there's something called corn. He created it in the New World. But corn showed up in Europe in the 1500s when they started to enslave the rest of the world, the white-faced Europeans. Yay, us white-faced guy, right? When they decided they were going to basically conquer, rape, pillage, and plunder the whole rest of the world. So one of the things they brought back, interesting enough, to feed their animals, not to feed themselves, right? Europeans didn't. I mean, maybe they do now, but in the early days they did not eat the corn. The corn was for animals. Right? They brought the corn back with them. Standing corn is a fine. Now, you might say when they say corn here, they mean kernels of wheat. Okay, but standing corn is a bad translation because that thing that you and I call corn didn't exist. Yeah, again, because the Torah, it exists in the world, and God wrote the Torah, and He knows everything, right? But the Torah is written relative to the reality around here, right? I mean, that's what the Torah is talking about. So, when the Torah talks about the animals that are kosher and the animals that are not kosher, so it talks about the animals that you would find around here. Okay, now it is interesting, you will not find any kosher animal anywhere else that isn't mentioned in the Torah. Right? There is no kosher animal that shows up in Australia that wasn't mentioned in the Torah. Right? There are kosher animals in Australia, exactly the same kosher animals that show up here. But there are lots of non-kosher animals that show up there that aren't mentioned in the Torah. The Torah doesn't mention duck-billed platypuses. What for? Right? No one around here is eating them. Right? But the Torah does mention things that have split hooves and chew their cud, etc. Well, those exist all over the world, and they're exactly the same animals that exist around here. And the birds also, no kosher birds were found anywhere else. No, fish, fins and scales. It's easy enough. There's fish with fins and scales. There's no point to the Torah to give any names to fish. It gives names to birds, not fish. So the kosher birds are the same kosher birds that are around here. Right? Chickens, doves, pigeons, turkeys. Turkey's a question, right? There are people that don't eat turkey. The Shalah said turkey's not kosher. Okay, so it eats oisada, or it actually burns the field. How it burns the field? It means it singes the dirt. You might have just plowed the field, and a fire comes and burns the dirt of the field, and so that means that you're going to have to plow again, which means it's going to cost you money because you paid someone to bring his John Deere to plow, or you plowed, or whatever, right? Okay, so there could be, the Gemara asks, what field? What do you field? And the crop's in the field, not the field. No, the field itself. Yishalem, who? Shalem Yishalem, he shall pay, you should certainly pay. Hamavir es habe'eda, the one who set fire to the fire. Right? That's what it says. Okay, now let's see what our Gemara learns about that. Now, what are we trying to learn? What halacha regarding Aish are we learning? Minimal guarding is enough. Same thing, right? So whatever this drush is teaching me, that's what it's teaching me. How? I don't know. But that's what it's teaching me. And if I don't forget that, I'll never understand what's going on. But if I remember that, I can understand what's going on. Okay, let's see. Ubir, sorry. Shalem yishalem ha'mavir es ha'be'era. Ad da'avid ke'ein mavir, until he becomes like one who, and what's mavir?
Who started?
Starts the fire, sets fire. Okay. Well, he did set fire, didn't he? What does this mean? Until he becomes as if he set fire.
You only need to pay if you did it intentionally, or you were the one who caused the fire. Okay, but again, we're talking about minimal guarding. I assume I'm the guy who started the fire. Okay, where did I start this fire? In my place, right? And what happened? The fire went spread. I said went out, but it doesn't go out meaning doused. It went out further through what? What took it there? It says the pasuk tells me. All these thorns and stuff. There was a bunch of stuff that caused the fire to spread out of my control. Oh, okay. When am I obligated? Now, where did the fire go? Clearly. Went to Shmuel's field. It left my field and went to Shmuel's field. Now, I don't know how I'm learning this in the drush yet, but what do I know? When am I obligated for burning down Shmuel's field? Only if what?
You sat.
If you didn't do minimal.
If I didn't do minimal guarding. Right? So if I did minimal guarding, whatever that is, now what would be an example of minimal guarding? What would I have to do? I set a fire in my field. What should I do before I do that? What?
Creating a perimeter where it's
right. So I created some place where the fire would have to jump over to get anywhere else. 100% that would be, or filled up something with water around it, or soaked the stuff around it, right? But evidently what I did wasn't enough, because what happened?
set fire anyways.
It went anywhere. Okay.
Maximal guarding, I don't know. It'd be hard to know what maximal guarding is with a fire. Probably I'm sitting there with a fire hose that's, serious, and I've got helicopters and planes. I don't know. Okay. Maximal guarding will the Gemara talks about it in the Bava Kama talks about Eish also. There's a whole parak about Eish. And you're talking about, the width of the road I have to make in between, or the width of the body of water in between, and the height of the flames relative to the barrier that I might have built. Okay? But minimal guarding. Now, how do I learn from these words, minimal guarding? Hamavir esabeira, the one who set fire to the fire. Which fire? Which fire is the problematic
The
fire?
fire that's spread from what you're trying to burn to the property that was damaged.
Oh, so which fire is my real problem? The one I started, or the one that's over by your yard? The one in your yard. So what do I have to be in order to be chayev? Read the words now. Ad da'avid kemavir.
Someone who started that fire.
It's as if I'm only obligated if it's as if what?
You start the fire in his
As if I started the fire in his property. Meaning if I did anything reasonable to stop the fire from spreading to your yard, I'm not considered someone who set fire to your yard. I have to be someone who it's as if, what did I do? Set fire to your yard. I set fire to my yard. I know that. I started a fire in my yard. That's who I am, right? So of course I did that. So that's what the words mean. Ad da'avid, until he becomes ke'ain, sorry, where'd he go? Ke'ain mavir, someone who started the fire. Where? In Shmuel's yard. Not in my yard. I did start the fire in my yard. It has to be as if I dafka took a match and lit it on Shmuel's stuff and let it go. I have to be that negligent. But if I did anything to stop this fire from spreading, anything reasonable but minimal, then I'm not chayav. All right? Okay. Now with fire, there's all sorts of interesting variables. What's the single most important variable that you would think of relative to fire spreading? What spreads fire? Wind. Right? That's why Baruch Metsuya, it wouldn't spread. I'm always going to be butter. Right? If I built the fire in such a way that with a normal wind, it's not going to spread to your yard, I don't understand. All of a sudden, this crazy wind came, and I didn't expect that. Okay. You lose. I get it. You lose. That's a pain. That's a shame. I get it. But that doesn't mean I can take money out of my bank. That the Beis Din can take money out of my bank account and give it to you because of a crazy wind that whipped up for no reason, right? Okay. So that drasha that we just saw, you're going to learn that drasha 2 more times. Ad da'avid ke'ein X. That's why I wanted you to learn the second one, because it's going to say that 2 more times.
This Mavir is someone.
Mavir is someone who actually set the fire.
Yeah, but we're using the next 2.
No, bier is something else. That's a different word. Bier b'stei acher, that means someone who ate in another field. There's mavir and bier. The next one is shame. Bier is shame. Okay, let me give you some words further. Sorry, V'shilach. Okay, ain't v'shilach, sorry. V'tanya. V'shilach zeh haregel. Yeah? We did up to the word v'shilach ad da'avid ke'ein v'shilach.
Yeah.
V'tanya, this might be part of that, it might be a separate part, but I mean, it's pretty clear to us that was talking about regel, because it says regel, but now we're showing how we know that's regel. V'tanya, v'shilach zeh haregel. V'cheinu oimer, and you look up this pasuk in Yeshayahu, Lamed Beis, 32nd chapter of Yeshayahu. Where do you find Yeshayahu?
It's in the
Beginning, right? There, in Nevi'im, in prophets, which happens after Devarim. So first there's the books of prophets that don't have name. Well, I mean, 2 of them have names of people, but basically don't have names of people, right? There's Yoshua and Shaftim, then there's Shmuel, Aleph Shmuel Beis, which does have a name. Then there's Malachim, which doesn't have a name. And right after Malachim, who you find, then all of the books of prophets have names, the names of the prophet. What's the first book that shows up? Yeshayahu. The second one?
Generally, even though it's interesting when you look in Chazal, it's a different order. But in our Chumash, in our Tanachim, it'll be Yirmiyahu, then Yechezkel, and then what's called the Treasar, the 12 so-called minor prophets. I don't think if God talks to you, it's called minor, but whatever. They're called the Treasar, where all 12 are in one book per se. Okay, they're much shorter. They're sometimes a few chapters each. Okay, so you'll find Yeshayahu. Right? If you see Tehillim, you went too far. Tehillim's the beginning of Ksuvim, of writings. Right? So go backwards till you find prophets. Mishalche regel hashor v'chamor. Okay, you'll look up the pasuk. I don't have to translate it. That's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Now a pasuk in Malachim Aleph, Kings Aleph. Okay, which is after Shmuel, Aleph and Base, which is after Shaftim, Judges, which is after Yoshua, which is after Devarim, the end of the Torah. Ubier zeh Hashem, that's Shem. V'cheinu omer kasher yiv'ar hagalal ad tumo. You look up that pasuk in Malachim Aleph, Malachim 1, chapter 14, it's verse 10. Taima, the reason is the Ovid Ke'ein v'shilach ubier, that it was as if he shilacht and beard. Okay, you'll figure that out, just like we did it now. Ha loy Ovid, he didn't become like that. Loy, no, stop. There's 2 dots, 5 lines down. We're just going to go to those. Even though I don't expect you to get there, but fine. Amar Rabba, Masnisa Nami, our Mishnah also, Dika, learn it carefully, and you will come to the conclusion that you just came to. And our conclusion was that someone wrote the Mishnah. I'm not going to say who. Dika is if you read it carefully, like miduyak, exacting. Dika nami. Dika nami is usually a proof that what I just said is true. Diktani tsoin, that it teaches sheep. Nichdi, let's see. Let's look into it. Hold on a second. B'shor ka askinan. With an ox we are dealing. Okay, now that's based on what we talked about before, but now I'll say it in much greater detail. Every sugya up until now that has been talking about animals doing damage has been talking about Karen, Shor. The last 2 chapters, one's called, the 4th chapter is called Shor Shenagach Dalid Vehei, a shore that gores 4 or 5. That's the 4th chapter. The 5th chapter is Shor Shenagach Esapara, that a shore that gored a cow. And there's a very interesting sugya at the beginning of that, right? You walk into a field and you see a shore standing there with blood on his horns and a dead cow and a calf. Did the shore gore the pregnant mother, in which he's obligated to pay for both of them? Or did he only gore the mother and the calf died independently? Unclear. You just walked there and that's what you saw. Okay, so how do you deal with that? Okay, how do you deal with such a situation? Okay, so we've been talking about a shore. We've been talking about caring. We've been mentioning shore, every mission. That's what he means when he says what he just said, okay? I'm just telling you that because otherwise this won't make any sense. Mithli, b'shor kaskin. We've been talking about a shore. The case has always been a shore. Va'asi, and he comes, nisne, and teaches, va'asi, nisne, let him come and teach shore, ox. So we've been talking about. Ma'ishna, what is the difference? Meaning, what's the reason? But what's the difference? Diktani, that it teaches tsoin, sheep. Lav mishum, is it not because the Torah miata b'shmiratan, that the Torah limited the need for their guarding. Stop.
What was asking?
What? What we're dealing with. That means what's the case?
And we stopped at Bishmir.
B'shmiratan. Stop. Okay, now, love usually is it not, but in this case, learn love is no. Makes the sugya a lot easier. Love, no. Mishum da'atara mi'ata Mishum dekan Karen loiktiva ba. Here, Karen is not written. Shein v'regel hu dichtiv ba. Shein and regel is written. V'kamash malan, it comes to teach us the shein v'regel de mu'adim hu, that shein and regel are always mu'ad. Shema mina, that's what it comes to teach. Shema mina, we hear from it. Like Shema Yisrael, mina, from it. We hear from it, meaning good. Okay? That last part is tricky, that last line.
Comes to teach us. Comes to teach us.
That it comes to teach, Kamash Malan, the shein v'regel, that shein and regel mu'adim who are always mu'ad. Okay? Okay. Say them. Bon chance. We usually will not have such a long class. I'm sorry that was so wordy. What? Look what happened. Look what you see.
Rabbi, did we do the break? There was a break after that? And the last?
2 dots.
No.
That's like, get up, make a cup of coffee, walk around the block, call home. 2 dots is big break. Okay. You guys are doing very, 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 very well.
Yesterday was beer, now coffee.
That was coffee.
Showing